A recap. Okay, so we were talking about the fact that developers, even the best developers, have a goal when they build a website, which is to make the website work. And they can be given the design, and they can build this beautiful website that works exactly as expected, but because of choices and decisions they make in the process, sometimes Google can't read it. It's not a fault of the developer. It's the fact that the developer is not as informed about technical SEO, so that then they end up building a beautiful website that just simply can't be read by Google. So,
Yeah.
Brian, you were saying, have you experienced this before?
Personally, like in my case, since I have like a bit of an idea of how SEO works, so kind of like incorporate like before with the sites where I had to do the design myself and then build it also as well, because I'm more of a WordPress developer. I'm actually a WordPress developer.
Right.
And most of WordPress developers can do the design on their own.
Yeah.
At least in my case, I try to incorporate like the basics of SEO. So, and also like as far as I know, WordPress already is somehow SEO friendly. So it helps a lot with the job. But I think like for some developers, like say the developers who really build websites from scratch, like Laravel developers, JavaScript developers, like what we talked about before we recorded. Some of them are just like focused on the coding stuff. Then they really don't have, or they might have like an idea, but SEO is not their priority, basically. So,
right.
like what to, yeah. And I think what Yusuf mentioned earlier about having someone in the team who knows SEO, or like an SEO basically during the design process is I think a very good approach, because if you don't do that, then suppose like a developer builds a website already and then some parts are not, or doesn't follow at least the basic rules of SEO, then you're gonna double the workload, because you'd have to make the developer build the website again. So like, for example, above the fold, something is broken there, it's already built, and then an SEO comes in, then says that, this part wouldn't work right in Google's perspective, or like at least the SEO basics, that the developer would have to basically rebuild it. Might not be happy about it, but he definitely have to be rebuild it.
Yeah. There's nothing more sad than to receive a new client and their brand new website that they're so proud of, and the first thing you say to them is Google can't read it. I had a client one time, they were so excited to get started on their new website, but they didn't want to start their SEO until it was built. So they waited, they built it. They called us that week, said, we're ready to begin. And I looked at Google's cache of the website, the homepage even, and Google's cache of the homepage said, please enable JavaScript to view this page. That's the only thing Google could see on the page.
Ouch.
And so it was like, oops. But like you said, WordPress out of the box does most of this right. Vast majority of what WordPress does out of the box is just great for SEO. If this case, they were building a website based on an early JavaScript framework, and they were trying to be bleeding edge technology, and their developers knew how to build a website in JavaScript, but didn't know how to make it Google readable. And yeah, but as a WordPress developer like yourself, Brian, it's you don't have a lot to worry about. It'll mostly work. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple little things, but for the most part, if you build it, it's going to be fine. That's why WordPress is such a great platform for that.
Yeah, but I think it even with WordPress, it's still like go with the idea that if you can have an SEO on board during the, suppose you're planning to have or build a website, it's really like a good idea to have an SEO expert there, so that you don't waste time and money, because websites are not cheap. And
Yeah.
then like making a developer work on a website is not cheap too. So like what I said earlier, suppose you only hire a developer, the developer only has like super basic idea but an SEO, then like you decide, because you don't rank well on Google, you decide to finally hire an SEO expert. You'd have to spend double, because you'd have to work with the SEO, then you have to contact your developer again, make him work on the code stuff on your website. So yeah, it's not that productive.
Well, and I'm sure you have experience too, Brian, where you as a developer with knowledge of SEO know how to build a good site, but then the client comes in and says, but I want this and I want that feature. And don't forget, I need a 10-page carousel, each with 5 MB images on the homepage. And you're like, well, that's probably not a great idea, but they're paying the bills. So you let them have it because they asked for it, even though it's going to hurt them. And so, the other factor is clients, right? Is that clients are going to sometimes insert their opinions, not knowing this is a really bad idea.
yeah. I've had my fair share of clients that are like that in the past. Yeah, but thankfully I have Dave. Dave mostly like
Yeah.
knows that he's the one that's like handling it.
Yeah, I agree. It's someone to say to the client, no, that's a bad idea, is worth a lot of money.
Right.
Save the client a lot of money by saying that is a bad idea. Like, I know you want to pay me for this, but I'm going to save you money and say, no, that's not a good idea. And here's why. And this is why it's going to save you money, because we're going to build it and then we're going to have to remove it because it's going to hurt your SEO. And then you're going to pay for both of them or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Then I think this is something that I learned from I think both you and Dave, is that I think most people forget that actually one of the main purposes of building a website is not really for you. Maybe if you're a blogger, but it's basically your main pointers, your audience, or to get people to look at your website. Right? You're not just building a website to just have a website without any purpose. So if you do poorly on your website SEO, then you decide on doing stuff that would hurt your SEO. It wouldn't be good for your business overall. So like what you said, saying no to a client sometimes would save them a lot of money and would be more beneficial to them.
We've talked about this before, but it's the idea that when you ask a client an opinion, so they will give it to you, even if they don't know the right answer, because you've asked them. And it sounds polite to say, would you rather have this or that? But in reality, they are not the informed one to make that decision. So sometimes you kind of have to tell the client what they need. They can say, and they can disagree, they're the client, but we kind of need to push back sometimes on clients for their own good. Google used to have this certification called the mobile website certification. Super certification, but one of the highlights of that was the idea that the fastest element to load on any web page is the element you don't include. It's when you keep adding stuff to pages that makes the website slow. But if you ask yourself, okay, do we really need that feature? And if you can remove that feature, the website's going to load faster because it's a lot less complicated. So encouraging clients to say, okay, I know you would like to have a slide carousel, is that essential? Is that really essential? And as they consider it, they might help anyway. Yeah.
David, I have something to add.
Oh, yeah.
So about having an SEO checking your website before launch. So this is preferable, but how much does this person need? I mean, how of an expert does he need to be? Because I'm sure some people can have knowledge about SEO, but I think you need to be a little bit advanced to know if like this, if Google can detect this table or this feature or not in a website.
So that's a great question, because there's different aspects to SEO. You're a specialist in the link building aspect of SEO, right?
Yeah.
And Brian is pretty knowledgeable about what we call technical SEO, which is how Google can read a website. And so when you're launching a website, you need someone with experience in the technical SEO, so they can make sure the website launches correctly.
Mm-hmm.
What I recommend clients do is, if they are planning to launch a website in light of SEO, that they hire a full service SEO person at the same time as their developer. And the reason is because, number one, if you hire me with the developer, I can work with the developer to make sure it's done once and done correctly, rather than 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But there's a lot of things we can do to help a website that will launch today. So let's say we're going to have 6 months to launch a website. If I start working on your SEO campaign today, one of the things I'm going to do in that 6 months to launch a website, and that's a long website launch, it's going to be a very large website. But if it's 6 months, one of the things I'm going to do is check in and make sure the developers are building it right. The other thing I'm going to be doing is link building, because the links, when the new website launches, will still help the new website.
To index it?
Yeah, index it, but the links will help the new website to rank because it has authority.
Mm-hmm.
So, we always say that when you launch a new website, it's going to take 1 to 2 months of a traffic dip before it recovers, and then hopefully at the end of the 1 or 2 months, we'll start to see an increase. The dip comes from the de-indexing and re-indexing of the site. So you can shorten that dip by doing certain things, like making sure all the URLs are the same, making sure all your redirects are in place, making sure you have a content strategy to make sure content makes its way from the old site to the new site. These are things that will shorten that dip. But one thing that will also help shorten the dip is if you're building links to that site. Even if you're building links to the homepage only, when the new site launches, all those links and all that authority will help the new website recover much quicker. So whenever someone hires me in this capacity, that's primarily what I'm focusing on: link building and technical. Not a lot of we might get some content pre-written to launch with the new site, right?
Yeah.
But most of what we're doing is link building and technical SEO to make sure that when the new site launches, everything goes quick, because we're still going to see a dip as Google takes old pages out of the index and then starts re-indexing, and then hopefully they start to grow again. That's the goal, right? But there are certain things we could do to increase the odds of that happening and the time, and decrease the time frame which would happen.
Yeah. But I guess most people will only hire SEOs after they publish the website. So how do you
You're
think
exactly right, and it hurts me. It really does. I every time I get often get this, And
Yeah.
I'm like, please, I know I sound like I'm making a sales pitch. Like I
Mhm.
know I have a vested interest in you buying the service from me, but I'm giving you my best recommendation. The best thing you can do right now is hire me before we launch the website.
Mhm.
And like Brian was saying, if we launch the website, we might have to undo things, and that is more
Right.
expensive and more frustrating. And I hate making the developers look bad. They
Right.
didn't do anything wrong. They did what they were told. They built a good website that works, and I hate coming back later and saying, making you, the client, think that the websites were terrible. The website was not terrible. It just wasn't built in light of Google. And it's not the quality of the developer. They don't know. Their job isn't to know, right? Hopefully they know a little bit, right?
Yeah. So
Like,
what can we do? Go
oh,
ahead,
sorry.
Rob.
Oh,
No,
okay, you
it's
go
okay.
ahead. I'll say it later.
Okay. So
Oh,
what can we do to convince them, like to change this thinking of hiring an SEO after launching the website?
That's the $1 million question. I really wish I could figure that out. I think the challenge is that people are spending so much on a website, they don't want to spend
Mhm.
more for it. I have tried to work out partnerships with web development companies to say, hey, put me in the price of the website launch. Add my service inside so when you're giving the client a price to the website, it includes a certain amount for my time to do the SEO check-ins, to do the link building, to pre-write the content. So like one of the things I love doing is having 10 blog posts ready to go upon launch of the website. And launching a blog post every day for the next 10 days to give Google that incentive to keep coming back to the website and having this brand new content on the website. Like it's great, but I got to prepare that. And it's really hard to convince people. What were you going to ask, Brian?
no. What I was supposed to say was, I always like. I'm not sure if my analogy is correct, but I always say it's like the difference between an SEO and or a good example for the SEO and the developer bit is like, I'm not sure how it works in the US, but here in our country, like when you want someone, or like when you want to build a house, you can actually just hire either an engineer or like a carpenter in our case, basically to build the house that you want. But it's different when you hire like an architect to design it, because architects would know like what's aesthetically nice, what makes sense, like how to maximize space and all that. Like for some carpenters or engineers in our case, they would just like build your house out like what you mentioned earlier, like how you specified it. You like tell the architect, now I want a garden here, even though it's like a bad spot. So when you put like when you build the house properly, like the right process, you should like get an architect to make sure that spaces are maximized. It's not an eyesore, like your house wouldn't be an eyesore, lighting would be good, something like that. It's a smart, like I think like one thing that I think most people don't don't know yet about SEO, as far as I know. Like I didn't understand it at first, because like I think for most people, when they hear about SEO, they only think about ranking on searches and all that. But actually what comes with SEO is also this is based on experience with working with like SEOs and like listening to you, David, is that it also includes the user experience.
Yeah.
Like, like what you said, not building carousels. For most developers, if you tell them to build a carousel, they would like build a carousel because that's what you said. But
Yeah.
SEOs would most likely push that back, because it's not the fact they have like a different expertise that would help help your website visitors, because that's the ultimate goal, to get like attention to your website and not make people leave your website. Sure, it looks nice for you, but for most people it might not. And SEOs would understand that. That's the purpose of why you should get like an SEO person.
I like that analogy because if I'm an architect, that doesn't necessarily mean I know how to put wood together to build a house. I don't have an architect doesn't have a hammer and doesn't have nails and doesn't necessarily know how to build it, but he knows the right way to build it. I don't know how to build a website, right? I know enough to communicate to a developer to say, okay, when you're doing it, don't use wood, use metal. Don't use, this for the siding, use that, right? But I can't build a house myself. In the same way, I can't build a website, but I know how to talk to a developer about how to build a website. So I like
Right.
the architect analogy of help. You need both people. You need an architect and a contractor. That's who we hire.
Right.
We call it a contract. The contractor hires the people like the carpenters and the cement people and stuff like that. That's how it works here, right? And so that's the project manager in the web development world, right? But yeah, that's a good analogy.
Right.